Welcome everybody to Robot Builders Night Virtual for Tuesday, May 6th. And we've got DPRG News. Tom has something going on he wants to tell us about, and then we'll jump to open mic. So DPRG News, we had a fun time out at the Rossum's Universal Robots play on Friday. We had DPRG outing. Mark and Nadine came, and it was a fun play. Really had some timeless messages, particularly some that are that are relevant to the AI situation at the moment and the debates that are going on over AI, and yeah, it was really a fun production. And one of the gals brought along a Pepper. One of the actors brought along a Pepper robot that was a robot built a few years ago by Aldebaran Robotics in France. A little sort of like 3 foot high robot that made a lot of noise and danced and wiggled, and it was a lot of fun. So I'm working on trying to get them to hopefully maybe do a presentation for us, or maybe they'll let us on site to look at their robots, or not sure how that's going to work out. So that was neat. 2.5 weeks until Roborama, and that's coming right up. And I'm not ready. I don't think. No.
I don't think any of us are.
Yeah, I think Scott's ready. I think Scott Gibson is really ready.
Scott was born ready.
He builds good robots, and they always seem to be ready on time. So that's what's going on in DPRG land. Roborama on May the 24th. We'll start at 10 a.m. and competition, I think, usually starts just after lunch. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tom. Tell us what you've been up to, Tom.
Well, like I said, not much to see. Just to get started here, you can see what I'm holding up, if this will work at all. I've taken my robot apart. The last time I showed pictures of it, it's been together. So this is the Pico, which sits on top and provides some supervisory control, and was intended to identify the line tracking functions, which I've been working on. You can see the 3 infrared sensors sitting on a loose circuit board, which feed into the 3 analog inputs of the Pico. These are a lot closer together than they were before. I'll show you in a minute why. The second board is a 3.3 volt Arduino Pro Mini, which is connected to the Pico. You'll see that lovely 3-wire cable that joins the Pico to this Arduino. It's an Arduino Pro Mini. The Pro Mini contains the unipolar stepper motor drivers and some very nice software called Excel Stepper, along with some modifications I've made to it. My initial test with the stepper motor turned out to be using seriously underpowered steppers. Even though I was able to get them to work marginally, they simply don't suffice. So the rest of my robot is on my bench in pieces as I replace the 160 milliamp coil steppers with 1 amp coil steppers. And that, of course, requires that I build a new stepper driver for it as well. The functions that run in the Android motor controller are running very, very well despite all of that. As long as you don't put too much load on the robot's stepper motor wheels, it'll actually move, and it does everything the way it's supposed to. I've implemented some very nice accel and decel ramps to go along with the main function of the steppers for other purposes, which is to be able to cause the steppers to move programmed amounts, which I used last year. It works very well. Now, let me show something here. See how well this works out. This is not particularly prepared. So this is a spreadsheet with a graph sitting in it. I had showed you, and will show you again, the little board that has these 3 very basic infrared detectors on it. I have been working with them mechanically, doing the parts I hate so much, all the mechanical bits and pieces of alignment, to get to the point where I can get signals from those infrared sensors which overlap. So you should be able to see them overlapping here. I assume you can see the 3 graphs. Yep. They're curiously, one of them is curiously a lot less sensitive than the other 2, even though I've played around with them and swapped them a bit, but it's sufficient for my purposes. I simply wanted to be able to get enough overlap on the analog signals from the infrared sensors to be able to tell when the sensor array is moving from left to right across the line. It makes the logic associated with trying to figure out what to do next a whole lot simpler. My initial code is simply using these things as on or off with some hysteresis and some thresholds which I can adjust in software, rather than attempting to use the fiddly little op amp which is provided on these boards. I've had bad luck with that in the past. So I read the analog values and I set thresholds and hysteresis in software. And that gives me a better feeling for what it is that's happening and what some of the history looks like, state history, as the thing moves from left to right. So I've been working on that stuff, and that's when I realized that my stepper motor logic was hopeless, and decided I better stop and fix that. So my robot's in pieces until I get the motors running, the much more powerful motors, and their more powerful drivers running. That's about it. The I2C slave functions, I mentioned, I have them running. They're working very, very well. The Android Pro Mini runs as a slave on the I2 bus, which I have several other functions on running with a master at the Pico. So I can send speed references at high speed to the Android, and that's working very, very well. I send them at high speed and make sure they're synchronized, although things are fast enough that synchronizing them on the Android really isn't that big a deal. I've also configured that software so that for future developments, I can request the Arduino to send back position and velocity information. That can be useful as steppers, even though the steppers run open loop, but even more useful when I use the same functionality on a gear motor based platform, which looks very similar. So that'll be something I'll work on later once I'm happy or frustrated with the stepper motor line follower. So it looks like this is all going to work very well. I will basically have a standalone, easily reproducible device for motor control, velocity control, and position and speed feedback. That's about it.
Tom, I had a question. Last week you were having trouble with your analog inputs.
Yeah, yes. I have 4 different clones of Picos. Back when Picos got so cheap, I bought way more than I should have because they were cheap. And you never buy one from AliExpress. One of the particular clones that I have, the Pico printed circuit board, is configured without connecting the VREF for the ADC converters up to any voltage input. You have to do that yourself. And it's not one of the inline pins. It's a pin that's kind of located elsewhere on its own on the Pico printed circuit board. So once I track down that flaw and I put in the necessary jumper wire, it runs just fine.
Good to know.
Yeah, I then went through and modified all of the others of that same type, because you know I will not remember that.
So Tom, you said you're going to do, are you making your stepper motor driver, or are you know, because they have very nice stepper motor drivers because of 3D printers. I mean, they got, you know,
Yep.
They're already made for you. All you have to do is hook them up.
Now, bear in mind, I'm using unipolar steppers because I have a box.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that makes for a much simpler driver. And in fact,
Now,
I'm
what
using
type
these
of,
LLMs.
yeah, can you show me your stepper motor?
Sure.
Because most of those unidriver stepper motors can be made to be bipolar.
Not this one, not these ones. Some of them can. I have some 6-wire. These are 5-wire.
Oh, okay, okay.
These are 5-wire. This is actually the older one, but the newer ones look identical and are also 5-wire.
Weird.
So,
Yeah,
well, it's just when you have old steppers, Doug, that's what you get, right?
yeah, yeah. I know. That's why Robbie has a unit stepper driver in it, by the way.
I have bipolar steppers, but at this point, I'm not going to use them. I even have driver boards that will use, what are they, the A4988 modules or something like that, which I
Something like that.
I have on my 3D printers and my CNC.
Yeah, I know. I want to say that they're like, they're almost $1 a piece if you get them flown.
Yep.
Yeah,
So I
Paul,
love to use what's in my parts box. That's what I'm doing.
Hey, Paul, that's why the Robbie has a unipolar stepper in it. It's because it came out of an old, 8-inch drive, floppy disk drive. And that's why you probably don't have quite enough oof that you were mentioning.
Yeah.
If we put a much smaller bipolar stepper motor in there, it would probably work a lot better. And you just have to change the driver board. It would be, they're all modular, so it would be real easy to do. Anyway, so when you said that, I was saying like, whoa, making a stepper driver. Yeah, that's kind of hard. I mean, well,
Let me hold this up again. This printed circuit board was designed to drive low power unipolar steppers from an Arduino Nano.
Okay.
And I modified it a bit to use the Pro Mini. But I have a bunch of boards that look exactly the same as this, but instead of being configured for 2003 Darlingtons, they're configured for those A4988s or whatever they're called. So it holds 3 of those. So I've got them here. I've just never used one for this application yet.
Yeah. And by the way, just for clarification, the IC that's on those little modules is not an op amp. It's a comparator.
Right.
And so if you were trying to get
393, I think.
Yeah, if you were trying to get some sort of analog out of them, and it wasn't going to happen, because they're comparators. They're either on or they're off. So
the circuit design I've got does have some hysteresis in it, but not very much. I remember you and I discussed this back a few years ago when I was trying to build optical odometers, and I finally said, that's enough. I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
So Tom, sounds like hopefully, fingers crossed, you'll have a line following robot for Roborama, and Pat, you'll have a 6-can robot for Roborama.
I will not have my 6-can robot ready to go. I am putting all my bets into my line following robot right now. And I will have the wooden monster probably fired up for Quick Trip.
Okay. Sounds like you might have a winning.
That when I finish this path, she'll build me the full size one.
That's my plan. By hopefully by next week is to complete the course with it.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Or at least the test course.
All right. Let's see. We didn't have anyone else in the queue. Does anyone who's just joined got anything for the queue before we jump into open mic? Okay, let's jump into open mic.
So I have a dumb question. Has anyone, we've talked a lot about ChatGPT and various other GPTs, and I'm wondering, has anybody spent any time with Grok?
No.
I've been
Have you
spending some
heard-
time comparing Google and ChatGPT, or Gemini, I should say. But Grok, I have not tried.
What is Grok?
That's Elon Musk's version.
Oh,
I had somebody do it. He took the same prompt I used, although it was about a website, and he used the same starting prompt that I did about 2 months and many changes after. But it, to my eye, and I haven't tried it yet myself, but looking at the results he copied, Grok was kind of interesting because unlike ChatGPT, it had no qualms about querying a real-time website, and it also, unlike ChatGPT, by default, it just showed you all of its stream of consciousness analysis as it was going through it. It didn't seem to really explain why it was chasing one way or another, but it did give a summary at the end, like the ChatGPT, and I'm talking here ChatGPT, like the paid level with the 01 or the 03 advanced reasoning. So it was interesting to see, and it did come up with some things that I kind of knew about, but I hadn't really dug into yet. But
So you're saying you found it doing things that 03 wasn't doing, like with the reasoning, because 03 is doing the reasoning in 01.
well, what I mean is that so I basically I asked ChatGPT to query a website and look for reasons, look for search engine problems on, but it said I'm unable to query a real-time website like that.
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah.
really strange because there's another time earlier, just a couple months ago, I asked some question about the news that was going on, and I didn't even ask it directly, but when it gave the response, it cited news that had only been published about 6 hours before, and
You'd probably switched models. They're only some of their models will let them do a website search.
really.
But
Yeah.
but I think I know what you're saying, Carl, because I've been just recently trying some use cases where again I was telling it, go to the web page and go summarize me that, and it seemed like sometimes it's doing it and sometimes it's not. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's just taking, I literally give it a URL, and like sometimes I can tell it's actually going there and says reading, and sometimes it's just taking the keywords and doing a search and going somewhere else that
Yeah.
I didn't ask it to go to. And so I've been struggling with that use case where I know there's 5 wiki pages that I wanted to consolidate for me, so I don't have to read all 5 of them, right? And it wasn't quite doing it. So what I found myself doing recently is I found that I've most consistent success if I give it the PDFs. If I
Yeah.
have a ton of PDFs, like a data sheet of some sort, of a microprocessor, I just got to get my arms around some things, right? Give it the PDFs. I'm playing with that right now a lot, actually. Trying to distill stuff that's in a lot of PDFs down to something I can consume, and like again, giving it the attachments. I found that to be consistently, if I tell it, refer to these, read these attachments, and then from its all the thinking, you can tell from what it's doing that it's actually using the document. So I've had more luck with that than getting it to read a page, which sometimes does work. Just I don't know why it's not consistent.
Isn't that weird? Because I've had consistently good luck with Perplexity and Copilot reading live web pages, which is funny because Copilot has ChatGPT under the cover, right? But
yeah.
But you compared. You say
I don't know what it is.
So Chris,
you
you've
can
got
attach documents.
Gemini versus.
You can attach up to 10 PDFs. I mean, there are limits. The different models, they have different limits.
Yeah.
But I've found good success with attaching PDFs to ChatGPT, in particular 03. If it's a 80 megabyte PDF with 65 chapters, like some of the stuff I'm dealing with, which is why I'm using it, right? You gotta break it down into, so there are limits, right, to how much it can digest. Even if it doesn't throw an error, it'll just forget stuff. You're way beyond the context window at this point. So you gotta break it down. There's tools. You can take a 80 megabyte PDF, break it into 60 separate files, one per chapter. You know, you don't have to do anything. It's all automated. And I just upload this. Then I know which Gen chapters I really care about. I don't care about all 60 chapters.
Yeah.
One of my questions, right? So I attach the 10 chapters that I know most likely to contain information I'm looking for. And then it's much happier with that than attaching, 100 megabytes of stuff.
What do you think about Gemini versus Chat GPT?
I'm currently leaning. I say my favorite right now is 03. OpenAI 03, slightly better than Gemini 2.5, which is technically slightly better according to the leaderboard, but I find the responses of 03 a little better, but it's close. What I do, Gemini, I just signed up for the 1 month free trial of the, whatever they call it, Google Advanced Store, so you get the full version. The other tool that I am looking at, especially for PDF, summarization, Google has this Notebook LM, which I think is similar to Perplexity, although I haven't used Perplexity. But this Notebook LM feature, or tool from Google, is actually exactly designed to only use the sources you tell it about. It doesn't use anything from its pre-trained, right? I mean, it's going to use its pre-trained information to connect the dots, right? It makes sense of text. But it's literally the use case for Notebook LM is, here are some sources, go answer the following question strictly based on the sources that you tell it about, right?
Yeah,
And
I
make
use
up as much stuff.
Yeah, I use Notebook LM to summarize the transcript from these RBNV meetings, and it's just like you say, it only looks at the sources, which the sources for an RBNV are the chat window and the transcript.
Yep.
And it, for the most part, does a pretty decent job.
Yeah, and you can give it web pages also as a source, right? So this is not limited to PDFs that I gotta attach to it. So Notebook LM, you can first ask it to help you even discover sources, right? It's meant to be a research tool, but you list your sources, URLs, PDFs, and other things you can attach, and then you let it noodle on those sources, and it's not gonna go out in a ad hoc fashion and connect the dots in a way that's based on information that you didn't really explicitly give it, right? So I find that actually pretty powerful, although I have to say I'm also having very good success with doing the same thing in 03. Like I said, attach a handful of PDFs and pose a question to OpenAI 03, and it's doing a very good job at extracting some pieces of information. I guess I need to give it a harder use case. It's tough, right? Because if I don't know the answer, then I can't really tell if what it's giving me is good or not. So if I give it a use case where I already sort of know the answer, then it may not be hard enough of a use case.
The dilemma. Cool.
Use another AI to verify it.
Yeah.
No, but it's I think it's getting to a point where I think it's gonna become an assistant for us engineers, right? That's what I'm looking for. I'm just looking for an assistant, who can make me more efficient.
But I did have, I guess I can report it's not exactly a robot-y, but it's related in terms of using the GPTs. So I have this discussion. It's probably up to 24 interactions, prompts back and forth over the last couple of months to try and figure out this one website issue for this car club I'm in. And so I had this preconceived notion in my mind of what was wrong with the site and what to fix. So my prompts naturally started there, but I very consciously attempted to ask it to try and confirm or come up with a better hypothesis for what was wrong. So I thought I had used it to come up with a couple of different options, which were similar to what I expected to find. And we were all primed. I was within a few hours of sitting down to do this kind of annoying, relatively large set of changes to the website. And then there's something nagging at me. So I went back and looked like weeks ago, much earlier in the chat, and I found that it had given just a little hint on the side that I kind of ignored because I just didn't like the word shim, so I just didn't ask it about that path. But when I went back and said, okay, now you've told me that these two things are both best practices. Earlier said that this was a best practice, but we, for some reason, didn't talk about it. So let's revisit your proposal, your recommendation, but tell me why this thing with a shim would be better or worse than these other things that we've been spending all the time on. So I realized after that I had been coaxed or coaxing it into this local optima, and by stepping back and broadening it up again, I wound up with a fairly different answer that was much better and like actually the answer I was looking for to begin with. But my biases in how I asked and how I responded to the interaction led me down a path that was, in my view, suboptimal.
That's interesting.
It can happen in the real world, right? That happens when you have teams of people working for you. It happens when you get yourself noodling along on something. But sure enough, it can happen with these darn tools too. Yep, for what it's worth. Careful what you ask for. You might get it. Whether, and it's funny because whether the tool has biases or not, right? Your biases influence what it's just going to feed you what you expect, maybe. I don't know. Well, that's it. That was my semi machine intelligence related thing. So that's it for me. Thank you for the feedback.
Just very curious, Carl. You said are you trying to redesign this website, or are you trying to analyze the data in something, or what is it that you're trying to do?
The problem is that for as long as I can remember, the website has not showed up in Google search. And
you're trying to do a web search optimization problem, basically.
Yeah, it's that. But I was convinced, and I'm still convinced that I was right in many ways. But that the problem is that Google will not index the website because it doesn't like it didn't like that there was some almost decade-old redirects, too many of them, and there was bad implementation in some of the HTML, robots.txt, and htaccess. So all of the kind of technical things where the tools and the manual hacking tell the website, this is a Lightspeed server, which is Apache compatible, but all those little knobs and switches that tell the website server how to receive a URL and then at the end of the day wind up with a web page in your browser. The way that those very technical things were set up was misconfigured.
Yeah,
and the sad thing is that DuckDuckGo and Bing, they didn't care at all. But Google is just Google. And of course, their tools, the Google Webmaster Console, where they help you figure out what's going on. It's like having a check engine light on a modern car without reading the OBD port. You got a check engine light and no codes. Bad. Okay, what's wrong? bad.
Yeah.
It could be 1,000 other things. Here, you can loop through all of our help pages, but something's bad. Go fix it. And since you've been bad for so long, we don't care how much you're spending time in our web console. We'll come back and check it, I don't know, maybe a week from now. So you made some changes, great. When we get around to it next month, we'll see if you fixed it. If not, we'll just tell you it's bad. Bad.
Yeah. Well, I know when I first took over the website for DPRG, I would get messages from Google. And usually it weren't big messages. There'd just be 1 or 2 items. There wouldn't be thousands of them.
No.
But, you know, you'd go out and you'd fix them, and sure enough, things got better.
Yeah.
But one of the problems we had was if you don't have your robot.txt done right, you know, you basically can be sitting there telling the search engines, don't look at us.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't look at us.
Move along. Nothing. This is not the website you're looking for.
Yeah, yeah.
Nothing to see here.
Nothing to see here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
there was anyhow.
Interesting.
It's just amazing though, because I know enough about what to expect that I felt I could tell pretty well when I was getting decent answers versus BS, and there's ways to kind of verify that the answers were credible or not. So it is just truly remarkable how with some text and questions, I mean, I was able to get really, really good answers. And you know, we use it to craft Arduino code and computer vision algorithms. So I had it draft HT access rewrite rules for me and explain what is this legacy, this 12-year-old robots.txt file. What is each line doing? Does it make sense for what I'm trying to accomplish? So it's pretty remarkable, really. But it would not read the real live website, so I had to find other ways around it.
Well, I came across an interesting thing, just changing the subject, that I would like to share. This is showing. So this is a video in IEEE's robot videos, showing in the top half of the screen what it was detecting, and in the bottom half of the screen the video, and it's showing near misses or near accidents happening. So I'm going to just play it a little bit at a time, and it's pretty cool. Are you all seeing that?
Yeah.
Okay, so you can see right
Wow.
here in its view, someone fell over, and it's actually in the camera shows that it was a motorcycle crashed and laid down in front of the vehicle, and it jammed.
But it detected it, and it actually rendered the view on its side.
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
Wow.
And so moving on, it stopped, and then it moved around it.
So what
Here,
system
Did
is
it
this
run over
from?
them? Paul?
Watch this. There's a it sees.
Notice it didn't stop to help though.
No. The hell with that.
I'll just move around.
Yeah.
At least it didn't say extra points.
Here in the video, you can see a cyclist coming down at a pretty good clip, and it sees them it detects them on the its rendition of what's going on, and jams on the brakes.
Oh, so this is Waymo.
Yeah, and then this is a case where there was someone on a scooter, and they pulled in front of the vehicle, and it detected them and swerved away from them.
It's funny how the top view looks like a video game.
Doesn't it?
Well, they probably use a video game engine to create the
And
view.
there's
No doubt.
a wreck happened right in front of it, and it depicted that was really kind of cool the way it depicted the wreck happening as this car merges, and there's another car coming in from the right. That's that white car, and the graphic depicts them all kind of like running together, bashing into each other like bumper cars, which is what really happened.
Huh.
Yeah, and so there was a car detected coming from the left quickly, and it slowed down and let it zoom on by.
And swerve to minimize the.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, I'll post that video. It's in the chat. It's pretty cool.
That's wild.
Can I share something similar along the similar
Yeah,
lines?
please.
All right. So I got this announcement on my in-mail the other day. In U.S., first Aurora launches fully driverless trucking deliveries between Dallas and Houston.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody else had seen that or not, but I thought was rather impressive. So they've actually had this driverless truck run between Dallas and Houston.
Yeah. And it's live apparently.
Yeah. So they go about talking about it. Here's some of the sensors, how they've got the sensors placed around the truck. One thing that caught my eye was down here at the bottom, how many regulatory bodies they had to get approval from just to do this. All the way down to your local law enforcement in Texas.
So I presume, is it like the delivery bots on campus where there's still like a control center with live people behind the console if need be?
I would assume so.
Huh.
Here's a view.
It would be
just like
really
on
bizarre
Paul's
to
video.
assume the opposite.
Wow.
What's that?
It would be really bizarre to assume that there wasn't one.
Yeah. And you can see they're getting to quite heavy traffic too.
Yeah.
And
That's impressive.
I was curious, okay, does it ever change lanes and try to pass a vehicle? And it actually does.
Oh yeah?
Mm-hmm. So
Does it know how to stop when it's being chased down by a police car?
they mentioned
Driver
in their
fell
software,
asleep. He slumped over. There's no driver there.
Funny you mentioned that because that's one of the features they're putting in the next software is things to detect emergency vehicles and how to respond to them.
Oh, it's not in there yet? Wow.
Well,
So it must be monitored. That must mean that they've got. They've probably got somebody in the back monitoring it.
well, it did on the first run, the CEO, but I think afterwards he was out of there for the rest of the other trips.
Yeah, the sense I got from the article was they said they've done 1,200 miles with a safety operator in it, and they're happy with it. So now they're sending them off on their own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I sure would like to see their insurance policy. I bet it. Whoa.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I just thought of a
Thanks for
similar
sharing
one
that,
here for you.
David. That's I hadn't watched the video, and that's very cool.
Mm-hmm.
I have a similar one I'll share with you that brought to mind if you like. This is news from Toronto. And there it is. Magna International, which is best known as a global auto parts company, has gotten into the autonomous vehicle business. And this particular gadget is an autonomous delivery cart. They've just gotten permission from the Ontario Provincial Ministry of Transport to place 20 of these on the streets of Toronto. There'll be a pilot study. They'll be monitored. The interesting thing is, politically, they did not talk to the city of Toronto before the province gave them permission to do it. So naturally, the city of Toronto is up in arms about this. Let's see, I'll just run this little video. It doesn't actually show much. Let's see what happens.
So it's like the size of 2 wheelchairs?
Yeah, not much bigger than that, apparently. See if it'll go back to where it left off here. Whoops. Let's go there. Yeah, so there's another shot of it. Not very big. You order stuff. It's placed in the cart with a digital lock on it. You're sent the digital lock so that you can get into it when it arrives. You have to go out to the street to get to it and take your parcel out of it. For the purposes of the pilot, every one of them will be followed all the time by a car with 2 people in it, just in case something goes wrong. I'm not sure what they can do from the car, presumably remotely control it. But like I say, the political ramifications were fascinating.
Will it eat your fries like the guy from Uber does?
I don't know. Will it go to the right address? How will you know when it's arrived? What does it do when you don't show up to come and get your parcel out? There's all kinds of fun questions here.
Yeah, at least the ones that lower from drone by cable can just drop it, whether you're there or not.
I love self-driving things. They're just so great. That's awesome, Tom. Thank you. What else have we got? If we don't have much, it might be a super short RBNV.
It's like a
It happens.
bunch of people either enjoying the rainy weather or working diligently on their robots or trying to hide because they're not working diligently on their robots.
If it's a short
Could be.
RBNV, I'm going to get right back on my robot development.
I'm working on Plan M.
And
Plan M.
cycle test A and B.
Dave has a robot he's showing.
Are you showing a robot, David?
Nope.
That may or may not make it to the.
Ah, this is your Arduino bot that you're working on,
Mr. Ackley, yes.
using the Waveshare robot controller, General Driver for robots. Well, as my wife
Actually, I'm trying to use MicroPython.
Oh.
Wait a minute. You got my interest. I'm back from my workbench. Where's that robot? Oh, I don't see it. David, what level are you using the MicroPython on? Let me just call you up here.
Oh, I like the handle.
So
Let me pin you, David, and how about showing us? Okay, I've pinned you, David. You want to show it for a little longer so we can actually get a good look at it?
Well, it's unfortunately it's not fully wired yet.
Okay,
But
that's
it's
all right.
progress.
Oh yeah.
okay. So
What-
so is that only the Waveshare ESP32 unit you're running, the micro?
Well, yes and no. I also have a Adafruit. That board at the bottom is an Adafruit I squared C board for an Arduino, but I've got it wired up to and plugged into the Wave board as a controller eventually.
So which of the controllers are controlling the gear motors?
It's the built into the Wave.
Okay. Now, does the motor control function have to be programmed in MicroPython, or is it already done for you?
It is in MicroPython.
Okay.
And what is does the display at the bottom, the thing at the bottom, that's a display, does it have any input as well, like buttons or anything?
Yeah, if you look at the left, excuse me, at the right bottom, shows the 5 standard buttons: up, down, left, right, and select.
Reset.
Okay, the video is very, very pixelated and it's hard to see much.
Well, okay, since I'm seeing it direct on my system, it's obviously very clear, but anyhow, it's the Adafruit Arduino control board.
Okay.
But in fact, if you can see right there are the I squared C 4 wires from it. That is, what I did is I picked up the where the Arduino would be hooked into it and just wired those in, if that makes sense.
Hey, Dave, is that a 4x20 display or a 2x16?
2x16.
Okay, gotcha.
And if you look at the bottom, you can't probably see it, but get the wheel out of the way. You see at the bottom, there we go. Those are the 4 wires right there and there. They constitute the I squared C and power.
Mm-hmm. I use a similar board on my 2016 machine, and it has to have a separate processor because it doesn't, it's just digital. And that looks like a nice solution. I might have to pick up one of those.
Yeah, it looked to be a nice solution. The issue with it is that the I squared C to actually 16 pins is a very powerful little processor, and it looks like it's going to be really ugly to try to control, and that's going to be much later. Right now, I'm just going to try to hardwire the trip, but the intent there is that eventually I'll be able to, not program it, but select different options and what have you using that board. So that's intended for future.
Are the five switches sent over the I2C, their states sent over the I2C bus?
Yeah, what it is, okay, both the 2x16 display and those 5 pins are connected to the 16 pin I2C interface board.
Gotcha.
So it's sort of like the backpack plus individual pins for the 5 push buttons.
And is the processor on that, do you know what it is? Is it
Yeah.
an A-Star or is it a Arduino or?
No, it's not any of those. It's
What
just
is
a
it?
simple 16 pin to I2C. It is not a processor.
Huh.
Oh, I think it's like a I2C port expander.
Yeah, it's like
Okay.
Yeah.
Basically it's an I2C port expander for the for all of it, and the 5 switches come in on
One of the
5
ports,
of
yeah.
the ports, and then the 2x16 display is like a backpack with
Yeah,
module, which
that
is
sounds cool.
Yeah, you
So
can.
it's, go ahead.
I was gonna say, yeah, I know that because I cheaped out and I bought a version off of AliExpress, but the it looks almost identical, but the pins or the buttons on that one are a voltage divider, like a resistor divider instead of I2C. So I kind of burnt myself by being trying to save a couple of bucks. So you do have to be careful on some of them, or just buy it straight from the Adafruits, and then at least you're getting the proper I2C one where you can see each button state even if you push all of them. Whereas the voltage divider, you got to make sure only to hit one button at a time, so it limits what you can input.
Right, exactly. On this, like you said, if you pushed all 5 at the same time, you could see that all 5 were individually pushed.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is that it's not a simple 16 pin to I2C. It's a fairly complicated one where you can set up that it generates interrupts with certain pins, or powered high or powered low, or all sorts of weird stuff. So it is a
So David, do you remember what it cost? I mean, I can look it up. I just thought that you might happen to know.
okay. Without the display, it's $9 and something.
Yeah, I posted a link to it. It looks interesting.
The trick on it, or one of my tricks on it, was that instead of the display that Adafruit uses, I used a standard 2x16, but a 3-volt 2x16. So all of the I2C, both the control, or excuse me, the multiplexer, 16 pin to I2C, and the display run off 3 volts, so that it runs off the I2C that the board provides, if that makes sense. So instead of running a 5-volt version, I'm running a 3-volt version, because that's compatible with the ESP32.
Yeah, I've always wondered, why didn't they just go ahead and do it for, a version for the 20 by 14 by 4. I'm just curious why they never did it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, yes, the 2 by 16 is very usable, but
Well, the reason why, okay, I use the 2 by 16 because that's what the board itself is designed for.
right, I know, but why didn't they ever? But the same interface is used on the 20 by 4. So
Oh, yeah.
why didn't they make a 20 by 4 version or make the version so that you could use either? I've always been curious about that.
Yeah.
Because I've always found the 16 by 2 to be just a little bit refined. I've always wanted another line if I could get it.
I understand, and one of the things that the reason I used this is that it was a quick and dirty way.
It's also very useful.
What you're suggesting and I've got, in my creative backlog is to make my own board that, doesn't have the limitations of this one.
Yep. Okay. Anyway, thanks for sharing that, Dave. Appreciate it.
Cool. Okay.
Oh, one other thing too, thanks to Paul who introduced me to this board. I think it's a very powerful and useful board because of all of the controls and drivers and what have you that it has on it. It's got I2C, it's got an IMU, it's got dual controls for motors with encoders. It has Wi-Fi, and I'm using Thony, and with Thony, I haven't gotten that far yet, but Thony allows you to do a web interface to it. In other words, normally you would have a USB plugged into it running Ripple. Well, they've got a Wi-Fi REPL so that you can run this remotely. You don't have to have it cabled in to run MicroPython. So it seemed like a good starting point to do all sorts of interesting things. I will probably be, a year out from actually running it on any of the Roborama stuff, but
You can get there. Just gotta work at it. One step at a time.
yeah. Well, it seemed like an excellent starting point that it wouldn't limit me in terms of what I could do. So that's what I'm playing with.
Awesome. Anything else? If not, we might declare same bot next week, same bot channel, same bot time. All right.
With an early
Good talking to
declaration,
you guys.
meaning go build robots, right? Yeah.
Go build
Yeah.
robots. Good talking to you guys. Take care. See you
Night,
in a week.
guys.
Good evening.
Okay.